So, I've got some questions. Is anything an original design? Does influenced by equal copying? What if I modify the original design? At what point does it become my own? How would I feel if somebody used my design in this way? Does giving credit to the original designer make it okay? Did I steal this design? All these questions were kind of running through my mind as I was debating whether or not to film this build. And to be honest, I face a lot of similar questions when it comes to influenced by or copied in my day-to-day job as an architect. In my mind, I can see both sides of the argument, really. I think that considering the vast amount of drawings, pictures, and objects that are out there in the world and online, it would be extremely hard to imagine that something is original anymore. But at the same time, at some point along the line, everything was original, right? To kind of spell this out simply, I found this design online, looks like Reddit to be exact. I searched for a bit to see if this person made plans available to purchase and download because I enjoy supporting other creators. This design is basically what I was looking for. After a bit though, all I found was somebody else's best guess at the dimensions and the material list. With this information, I began drawing a similar stand in SketchUp, modifying it as needed to fit my needs. I didn't need these side wings, I don't know what these boards were for at the bottom, and I wanted to make the middle shelf a pull-out shelf. Also, the material that I used was 1x-cedar as opposed to the 2x-cedar, just to give it a little less bulky feeling. And it was about this time in the build that I realized my microphone wasn't plugged into my camera. So, with that being said, let's get into the shop. Alright, so now I can take another stack of boards and essentially do the same thing for the bottom shelf, except I want to cut a little notch out on this side piece and the side piece on the other side for where this leg is, so that this board comes out flush with the side of this whole thing. Alright, so I'll make sure that this board is flush on the end on this side and put my square right here and mark a line right there. The same thing over on this side. Mark that out. Now we can line this up flush here, and then I can make a mark right where the corner of this is. So now we can take our square. We gotta cut that out right there. And I just threw in the rest of the boards just to make sure everything fit in there width-wise before I start screwing things down. So it's looking pretty good, so I think I'm just gonna drive in some screws now. Now I could make this really easy and just drive the screws in from the top here, but then you would see the screw heads, and if I can avoid that, I will. So instead, I'm gonna drive them up from the bottom, and how I'm gonna do that a little bit easier is just sliding this end off the table a little bit. And now it's far enough off the table that I can drive the screws in from the bottom. With the top and bottom shelves secured in place, it was time to cut the rails for the middle shelf. I mentioned earlier that I wanted this to be a pull-out shelf instead of stationary, and the reason being that I anticipated the Ooni being transferred from the top shelf to the middle shelf when not in use, and the pull-out shelf would just help with that transfer. In the end though, it really doesn't get used in that way, which is fine because it still functions as a shelf at the end of the day. And throughout the entire assembly, you'll see that I pre-drill all the holes before driving in screws. This reduces the chance of the wood splitting as the screw is driven in. Since I made this a pull-out shelf, the whole shelf needed to sit within the vertical uprights. I couldn't notch out the sideboards and bring them out flush like I did with the bottom shelf. To do this, I simply found the difference in widths, split that in half, and then cut that much off the two sideboards at the table saw. Then I used some pieces on the underside of the middle shelf to attach them all together. I did a little test fit and it seemed to fit pretty well. Next, it was time to install the drawer slides. I first attached them to the outside rail, then sandwiched them with another piece and attached that piece to the underside of the shelf. Then I could pull the shelf and the drawer slide out and connect the two together. With the drawer slides installed, I could hide them with a front fascia piece to kind of clean it all up. You'd probably never know that this was a pull-out shelf if I hadn't shown you. Finally, to make this cart mobile, I added some casters to the bottom of it. This was pretty straightforward. I simply pre-drilled the holes and drove in some screws. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and it certainly makes using the Ooni pizza that much simpler when we can just roll it out and fire it right up. And I'd be really curious what your thoughts are on original design. Did I steal this design, or did I tweak it enough to make it my own? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that, let's eat some tasty pizza.